evening. Welcome to Front Page Close-Up. Our guest this evening is the leading courageous Muslim reformer, RaheelRaza, who surfaced on the international scene last year by vocally expressing her opposition to the Ground Zero Mosque. Raheel was threatened by the developers of the mosque, but refused to stay silent. What a pleasure and privilege it is to be in the company and presence of a brave Muslim warrior for freedom, RaheelRaza. Raheel, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Jamie.
Raheel, let's begin with the Ground Zero Mosque narrative. But before we do, as a Muslim, you publicly stood up against this idea. There weren't many Muslims who internationally stood up and made this vocal scene of this sort. What inspired you? Why did you take a stance against the mosque that's being built for?
Well, entirely from a Muslim perspective, Jamie, because it is theologically, ethically, morally, in every way, I felt that it was a wrong move to build a place of worship in a place where there are thousands of people who are protesting the idea. They didn't like the idea of a mosque being built in a place where so many thousands of New Yorkers had been killed. And the idea of a place of worship is for it to be a spiritual place of worship, which it should be done in conjunction with community and community support. And there wasn't community support. So the developers needed to listen to the voices of the people who lived in the vicinity, and they weren't doing that. And later on, when I came to New York, I found out that it was very questionable where the money was coming from. So with what is happening in the Muslim world today, with the rise of radical Islam, political Islam, Islamism, it's very important for us to track the money, to trace the money, so to speak. Because if the money is coming from outside sources, it comes with an agenda.
I want to really zero in on that.
Yes.
But before that, you know, there's like 3-4 really crucial things you said. Let's just try to dissect them briefly.
Okay.
I hear and I feel humanitarianism coming from you. You're even listening to the Americans that are upset about the mosque, and you obviously have an understanding of Islam that's different than the understanding that the developers have and their supporters. What do you think the developers have in mind? Is this just about money, or there's some people that say that this is actually a political strategy, that it's a triumphalist mosque, that they want to hurt the United States and insult the United States in this way?
Well, Jamie, I wanted to be very fair to them. So I will tell you, I flew from Canada to New York for this reason, and I wanted to hear what their side of the story was. And at the end of the day, when I heard them speak, I realized that it probably is more about the money. There was very little spirituality in what they were doing, because as a committed Muslim, I realized that, again, everything has to have a good intention behind it. So if their intention was to spread tolerance, how do they spread tolerance?
Well, just a second. Didn't Donald Trump, or I mean, I don't got the facts here, but didn't some people come forward and offer them more money? They could have.
Yes,
they could have done it. So
yes.
There's no ideology involved, at least with the developers. You don't think?
I don't think so, because in the end he turned out to be a liar, and not only that, he later on threatened me. So what does that say about his character?
Okay, 1 second. Let's forget about the developer then.
Yes.
For many Muslims throughout the world, but let me say radical Muslims or Islamists, this would be seen as a victory and a triumph, right?
Yes, yes,
so that's what we have to focus on too. Whatever the objectives of the developers might be,
it's how other Muslims would have perceived it.
And they will perceive it how?
They would perceive it as being a triumph over America. And also, it's very important that a mosque is not just for the people who were building it, but as you say, the perception of the larger Muslim world.
But Raheel, you as a Muslim do not want to see that triumph. That's not something that interests you. You don't. Why do you have that different perspective? Briefly, before
because
we get into
there's a big difference between the spiritual message of Islam, the faith, and the political message of these Islamists. That's why we call them Islamists, and I separate the distinction, or make the distinction between the spiritual message, which is not about supremacy, which is not about oppression, which is not about taking over the world. It's about leading a moral and ethical and spiritual life, which is what most 90% of Muslims do, but they don't speak out.
Okay, and we're going to get to that. Now, Raheel, so let's break this down. The developers might be in this for the money, but the people giving the money might have something else on their mind. You know, I've been watching some of Jesse Ventura's shows lately, and he always says, follow the money.
Absolutely.
So in this case, What do you know, or what have you found out? They're quite secretive about the funding.
yes.
Who's funding this thing?
It's very much in the dark. I asked them the question when I was there outright, and they didn't answer it.
They wouldn't answer.
And I still don't have the answer. They keep saying that it's coming from within America or outside, but I know that the imam was on a tour of the Middle East.
So there's something funny going on.
There's something funny going on, and there's a lot of lies. And since the time I was in New York, which is a year ago, they have uncovered a lot of really negative
Yes.
issues regarding the people who are involved in this mosque.
Right.
So what does that say about their character?
Raheel, briefly, how
Yes.
did you end up in New York? Why did you go there? Did they invite you?
There was an invitation for an open session for the community, and I went with a widow of a 9/11, a person who had died in 9/11. This is a Canadian woman. She was going and she said, Raheel, they're having a meeting. Would you be interested, because you have written an op-ed saying that you are against this mosque being built? And I said, yes, I would really like to, because I would like to ask them these questions up front. I would personally like to hear them tell me that, yes, the money is being raised by people here in Manhattan where the mosque is going to be built. But of course, that didn't happen. When I asked the question about the money, first the developer said, I can't answer that. And secondly, he said it's not coming from a source that will harm America. Well, hello, why don't you tell me where it's coming from? So, I mean, the whole thing was very sleazy.
Okay. Now, the people behind the mosque, the developers, I don't think they gave you gift certificates to Macy's and free gift certificates
No.
for a pedicure, or served you coffee and donuts.
No.
It was something else. You got some kind of a threat.
Yes.
Can you tell us about it?
When I came back to Toronto, I reported on my meeting there. I was the only one taking notes. There was no media. So 2 days later, I got a phone call, and it was from Sharif Al-Jamal, who is the main developer in this case. And he threatened me. You know, he said, you know, may God help you, which is in a way of saying that, you know, what the hell have you gotten yourself into? And he accused me of gate crashing the meeting, which is a big lie, because I went with this person who had
Has he
invited me.
denied making the threat?
Yes, he has. So I reported this to media. They called him. He said no phone call was ever made from here, whereas I have his phone number on my cell phone. I still have it till today, you know, in case he ever
Did you tell the
decides to
police
apologize.
or anything?
No, no, I didn't, because I actually hung up on him, and then he said that no phone call had been made. I don't really want to have anything to do with him or his
Right.
kind.
And, you know, you're so brave and so courageous, just even to ask whether you felt fear or threatened. I think that these are small-time threats to you. I mean, in terms of what you've been through in your life.
Well, yes, of course, I've received death threats. But, Jamie, in the work that I'm doing, this struggle for the soul of Islam is not a place where I have time to worry about threats.
Wow.
You know, this is a huge battle that we are fighting, many of us, and we have to support each other, and, you know, don't really have the time to think back, oh, well, you know, I'm going to sit back and worry about my life.
Raheel, did you get other threats? Did you get, like, just in terms of this whole thing with the Ground Zero Mosque, were you alone? Did you get secret support from Muslims? Did you get, you know,
No,
it
not
felt
much.
very much that you were alone.
Yes. My whole life, my whole struggle has been very lonely.
Does it matter if I support you?
Of course it matters.
No.
Every bit of support
But in
helps.
terms of Muslims supporting you, it's been very
It's
little?
been very scarce. There are, of course, few groups that do support me. I have my own organization, the Forum for Learning. I have the Muslim Canadian Congress that supports me. And of course, progressive, liberal, democratic Muslims do. But largely, people are worried about their lives and their families, and they don't want to take the risk.
Over this particular incident, did you lose some friends?
Yes,
you
yes,
lost
I
some
did.
friends?
I did. It
People
was
shunned
very
you?
hard. Yes, they did. They felt, you see, essentially in their minds, they feel that if they go against this, they're somehow doing something, they're sinning, or they're speaking out against the building of a mosque, which is a place of worship. What they don't realize, that the mosque by itself is nothing. It's just four walls. You know, we don't encapsulate God in four walls.
Right.
It is the intention behind this place of worship. And this is what the Quran, the Holy Book, says, that, you know, don't do something that will be a problem towards your fellow, towards people of the book, who are Jews and Christians. And so the guidance from the Quran, the guidance from the Prophet in his life, is to be sensitive and tolerant and compassionate.
Raheel, the Muslims who didn't come to support you, is it because mostly they disagreed with you, or because a lot of them are scared?
It's a little bit of both. Some of them are scared, and some of them, just toe the line of the majority. What has happened largely in the Muslim world is that there is a failure to think and reason. There is a failure to think for themselves. And this is why, as I said, many of us are alone in this, because we are following reason and logic. Today there's considered to be a clash of civilization. It's not really a clash of civilization. It's a clash between reason and logic, and, not thinking, and an ideology on the other hand. And the problem is that you can't fight an ideology because it's a thought process. So the people who didn't support me, as I said, one, were afraid, and the second, just blindly toe the line of what the majority says, thinking that what the majority says is always right.
We have to go for a break. Raheel, emotionally, personally, through that whole incident and its developments, were there nights where you were very sad or didn't sleep, or did it upset you a lot?
Of course, I was absolutely emotionally drained and exhausted, because, what it does is it sort of makes you think that, what is happening around me? Am I right? Or is everybody else right?
Yeah.
But then you realize that speaking the truth is always what we need to do.
Yeah.
I work for justice, and so I want the same justice for you that I want for myself.
But I sense that, you're a spiritual, religious person.
Yes.
And even though the Muslims are against you, in your heart, you feel that Allah is on your side.
Absolutely. I could never do the work that I do if I didn't think that I was saying the right thing and following justice. And, I'm a human being. I'm not divine. So obviously I feel very humbled, and I'm always open to criticism. Constructive criticism is something that makes us better people. It humbles me. But when it is just people lashing out because they don't agree with me, one, I'm a woman, and so why should a Muslim woman speak out? There's a whole issue of authority in the Muslim world. There's no authority vested in Muslim women. So they ask me very clearly and directly, who invests you with the authority to speak? And my response to them is, God does. We don't have formalized priesthood in Islam. So if I speak out, it's because I'm empowered to do so.
I want to get back to that. We have to take a break. We're going to be back tomorrow evening for our second part with RaheelRaza, and we're going to discuss the issue of women and Islam. We'll see you there for part 2.